Hi folks, you're with Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an interesting phenomenon where African Americans are leaving the United States, and even some from Canada, leaving the United States and deciding to migrate to leave the United States behind, pack up and go and migrate to Africa to be amongst their own people, other black people. And that's going to be a paradise. It's going to be a nirvana. And they're full of starry-eyed notions about... now, majority of this isn't a desire to go to Africa per se. It's because they've been told by the propaganda machine that the United States is so racist, so over the top racist, that they would all be multi-gazillionaires if they weren't being held back by these evil white people, that white cops are running around murdering millions by these evil white people, that white cops are running around murdering millions of black people every day for not doing nothing because they didn't do nothing. And they're so they've got a fairly limited view on the reality of the world, but they're fed by the propaganda machine, ironically constructed and put together by white people, but they're fed this propaganda machine, and various sort of black commentators also. Black people can't even go to the front door before they're hunted down by fascist Nazi white people. So filled with all this sort of propaganda, they think, well, gee, anywhere must be better than where we are now, anywhere. And so I might as well go to places where black people are pretty much the only people there. And hey, guess what? Sub-Saharan Africa. So they head off to places like Liberia and Ghana and so on. And even some of them having the foresight to pick the wealthier African countries to go to. And so this video is about how well do they do? How does it work out for them? And having a look. Now, I couldn't get numbers. I mean, I'm sure if I dug for long enough, I could find the numbers of the amount of black people that leave the United States to go to Africa, to migrate to Africa to live. And then how many of them decide to come back to the United States. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but from what I can work out, for every 10 or every 100, if you like, that go to Africa from the United States to Africa, 85 come back again within the first 6 months. And then I don't know what the rest are. So we're talking a very small minority of black people, if any, end up staying in Africa, even though it's supposed to be so much better and there's no evil white people to oppress them and no Nazis and yada, yada, no white cops to run around shooting them. So what is interesting, though, if you go through a few videos, is there was a black production company did a story on it, and they're obviously very sympathetic to the black people who do it, and they're also very anti-white, but even they concede that it's a starry-eyed pipe dream, which is interesting that even they would concede that, and they seem to be trying to discourage black people from making that move from the United States to Africa. But if you look at the more sort of centrist takes on it, then it's interesting to see how ill-founded and how when the black people get there, this is the African Americans, get to Africa, there's a real sort of shock about, whoa, we never thought it'd be this bad. I mean, holy crap. And then they reappraise how good they've got it in the United States. So anyway, that's let's dive into this then. So the first things that they notice on arriving in Africa is just how backward the place is. Now we're talking about, they've gone from an average wage of $35,000 a year in the US to an average wage of $5,000 a year or less in Africa. The unemployment in Africa is 50 to 60%, whereas unemployment in the United States is, 5%. Everybody can get access to, electricity around the clock. They can access internet access. mobile phone access, all these sort of things that you take for granted. All the shopping centres you can go into, they give you free Wi-Fi. The list goes on, and you don't get any of that in Africa. Now, many of the streets and areas in Africa, they're not. There's you don't have paved roads or sidewalks. You don't have streets as we understand. This is the street name, and there's a grid of street structuring and electricity wires that are going. There isn't. Just don't have that. So the street you live in may not even exist on any map. The house that you live in or the place that you're renting or something may not even have a number. So it's a very different type. Everything's temporary and shantytown like, and that surprises people. You'd be lucky to find, other than the very downtown area of a city, you'd be lucky to find anything that's built with stone or bricks, and it's all cobbled together, bits of wood and the kind of the mud hut type thing. So that when you're just even a few hundred meters out of the downtown, you're already into mud hut territory, which shocks quite a few of them. So lack of facilities, and if it's a much warmer climate and it's quite hot, but that means you want air conditioning or a fan or something like that. But the electricity may only operate a few hours a day and is unreliable even at that. So you can't run your fan, assuming you even have one. So if they bring consumer goods with them from the US, then they're faced with the prospect that everyone around them is trying to steal their shit all the time. So they're amazed at the high crime rates. And they say that interestingly, one guy commenting said, "Well, there's a lot of murders and everything around here, but there's no police to do anything about it. The police infrastructure and the civil infrastructure don't exist. There's all these murders." But then comments, "Well, it's kind of no more murders than there would be in downtown Chicago." So it looks like at least there's equity in that side of things. Other Africans who've gone. This is African Americans who've gone to Africa. A lot of the others comment on how when it rains, the roads are impassable and you can't sort of put on a set of clothes and arrive at the other end of wherever you want to go you're covered in mud and this sort of thing. So it's kind of a different setup there. In terms of accessing medical services, the ratio of doctors per 100,000 of population can be less than a tenth of what it is in the United States. So getting medical attention is hard work, and getting appointments or getting to see a doctor that's got a clue. Another thing that was interesting too is racism. They're adamant that America is awash with Nazis and racists and fascists and white supremacists and so on, because the propaganda machine has told them that. But say in somewhere like Ghana, just as a case in point, there are Africans aren't racist in the sense of the color of the skin type thing, although that does figure into things. But the racism is on a tribal basis, and considerably more vicious than black and white type racism allegedly is. But so there are, say, 3 main tribes in, say, Ghana, and another 3 quite prominent but not huge tribes. The main tribes are, say, between 15 and 20% of the population, the total population. In the 3 subset tribes are say, between 6 and 12% of the population. So they're still quite numerous. Some are confined in certain areas, like some maybe, I don't know, mountain tribesmen or something. But when you get that many people, they're not mixing so well, and the racism against each other. If one of them manages to get control of a government department, they'll get rid of everyone else, maybe all other tribes, to make sure only their own tribe gets the jobs. So when these African Americans arrive, not only are they looking at a situation of unemployment of 50 or 60%, but they're also looking at they don't belong to any local tribe. So there's nowhere they can go to get this very tribal employment that does exist. So they're effectively unemployable. They just can't get a job, and they can't get a source of income, which is a bit of a shock. So unless they arrive with enough money to buy, say, a piece of land, then, and say do farming or something like that, unless they can do that, they've really got very poor, almost impossible prospects to gain employment. So, and again, people trying to steal their stuff all day, and because they've arrived with consumer goods that are in short supply in the place where they're at. So they're looking at really, it's a very difficult thing. You can't just pick up a phone and call the police. The other thing that they're shocked by is the amount of corruption, that you can't do squat without bribing somebody. And they're not used to this. They're used to going down to their local, welfare office and just getting handouts over the counter without having to do anything. But here you can't do anything without bribing somebody. So you need a certain amount of cash just to be able to do anything that you would consider basic and normal and day to day and matter of fact in the US. So in summary, they see that the purchasing power of the money goes further. You can buy a bag of rice for $1, whereas it would be $20 for the equivalent in the United States. So in some ways your money does go further, but nonetheless the inability to access government benefits is key to a lot of black people, and when they can't do that, that radically alters their capacity to get by day by day. So in the US, they can be unemployed, still access government benefits, free handouts, the super kitchens, the free food, and various other government things that they can't do in a poor country, because those sort of services and that sort of wealth doesn't exist. They say the racism is even worse than it is in the United States, the intertribal type racism and so on. And again, the corruption is off the charts. So when they look at piss poor services, piss poor access to, even if they've got money, the access to consumer goods that they would consider basic is very restricted. You can order things online and it can arrive in the next day, a day or two, whatever, from Amazon or something, the online shopping thing, but you can't do that over there. So you've got to go to the nearest shop that sells that, maybe 100 miles away across piss poor roads. How do you get there? Petrol's very, very often rationed, and if you want to get some, you've got to bribe somebody to get it, and so on. So they end up thinking, this is bullshit. This is no fucking nirvana. It's an incompetently run, mismanaged, corrupt basket case country. Sure, there's black people everywhere and hardly any white people, but I want all the benefits of a white-run society, but at the same time, I want to accuse all those white people of being Nazis. No, it doesn't work that way. So they end up going back to the United States after their failed African experiment. Now, it was always starry-eyed in the beginning. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to go, hey, I'm going from one of the richest countries in the world to one of the poorest countries in the world that is a corrupt shithole basket case, and I'm hoping that somehow that'll be a better life for me. No, that was never going to work out. But it shows the power of the anti-white propaganda that these people, simple though they may be in their reasoning, they have the view that anywhere is better than the racist hellhole, the fascist Nazi racist hellhole that is the United States, that they're told through propaganda is the case. And then when they get to Africa, they realize, holy shit, that propaganda, all those things untold, they really don't really gel once you're in a country that is a poor, corrupt, fucked up basket case. I mean, why is it a basket case? It's not because it's a well-run, well-managed country. It's a basket case because it's managed badly and corruptly and incompetently. And the black people don't like, they want the benefits of a well-run white society. And then they realize, hold on a minute, there's a lot of benefits from living among white people, and that primary among those is a well-run, well-ordered, society where there's a lot of wealth and a lot of social security and welfare benefits to be handed around. But it's interesting to see that realization. Now, the people that succumb most easily to this thing of anywhere is better than the United States are probably the more simpler people. Because if you just sit down and look at the per capita income, and you look at the murder rate, you look at the amount of doctors per 100,000 public, you just look at that, just that alone, and you say, well, gee, I don't want to go to that country. But they're being seduced by this idea, wherever I am, the United States is so racist, I want to go to a black country where there's no racism. But they forget about the tribal racism that exists in Africa. And for someone as well traveled as I am on business, I can vouch for those tribal type racisms, not just in Africa but elsewhere, are far worse than any type of racism that whites are supposed to be committing. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.